a lot of folks who are now using the tool a lot more than were a couple of years ago, but they're using reactive AI. So they're using ChatGPT, they ask a question and they get a response, but they may not be aware of agentic AI that's doing things for you. I can be doing this, and this is going to be a more productive way of doing something. So yeah, the tools I think are underestimated, but then also too, thinking about education differently. If you're using, even if you're allowing AI to be used in your classes, it shouldn't be the same assignment that they were previously doing without AI. And the prompt, it's something I had already tested ahead of time, that it shows that it's AI generated, or it shows that it's human generated when it's actually AI generated. But I used a good prompt, so it can't tell that it's AI generated, with memory so that it can remember my preferences, which makes prompting easier for future trips. It will lay out my entire travel plan. If I wanted to, I could go in the agent opens up a virtual computer. I want to make sure I'm explaining some of these pieces. For those of you who've never used Agentic AI, you'll see the agent open this virtual computer, and you can watch it actually working very quickly.
You are listening to the Global CTE Podcast with your host, Sylvester Chisom.
Welcome, my friends, to another episode of the Global CTE Podcast. I am your host, Sylvester Chisom. This is the place where I interview the best, the brightest, the movers, the shakers, and the innovators. Today is no different. We are celebrating women in CTE during our Women in CTE series all month long for the month of March. And today we have a special guest, Miss Rachael Mann. Now, let me tell you about Rachael. Rachael is the executive director of NCLA. She's a nationally recognized keynote speaker and a leading voice on AI, CTE, and the changing future of work. She's the author of 6 books, including her newest title, Pack Your Bags for an AI-Driven Future. She has developed AI courses and micro-credentials for both higher education and K-12 educators. With over 25 years in education leadership and recognition as a 2-time top 30 global guru, Rachael continues to push the field to think bigger about what future readiness truly means. Rachael, welcome back to the podcast.
Sylvester, it is an honor to be here and to be able to have this conversation. So much has happened.
Yeah, I was excited to talk to you again. Like I said, you're only one of a handful of guests who have made a second appearance on the podcast, but there's no one better to do that, as you center a lot of your work around AI. I was going back through our first episode, which was February 2023, and we were talking about the New York Times article where I think it was this New York school district, New York City public schools had banned ChatGPT, and everyone's all afraid. And now here we are. We're so much further along than that. I would love to know, since that last appearance, what do you think? What has changed most in how you think about AI and education?
I'm glad you mentioned the article about the New York school district or New York City banning AI, because at the time I felt that was, if I remember correctly, at that time I was in the mindset of, we have to make sure we're putting these tools in students' hands so that they are prepared for their future. These are tools that they're always going to have an AI co-pilot, and we're handicapping them if we don't allow them to use the tools. Now I'm able to see, because of some of the things that have happened with individuals who haven't been trained properly and using AI properly, that's compromised data. People who've uploaded proprietary information, not realizing, not understanding the tool. Gosh, I understand a lot more as to why a district would have at that point wanted to put parameters around it before actually using the tools and making sure that even that their infrastructure is prepared and they know, have the right tools, the right contracts in place. So that would be one thing that's changed, but it is moving fast. Like, we knew it was going to move fast. Like, the leaders in the industry were telling us that this is not something that is linear change. This is exponential change. And every day it's something new and something big that's coming out. And if you have one day of not paying attention to what's happening in AI, you feel like you've missed like a whole year of progress. And I'm only exaggerating slightly, but it's changing fast.
It really is. At first I'm like, okay, update every quarter. No, every month. And it's like, no, every week. It's like the tools new tools and current tools are getting better. And like, even as we've made shifts from, just jump on ChatGPT or something like that to all these different workflow performance enhancers, or now we're OpenClaw, like all these things, it's just moving so fast. I'm curious, like, for a quick reality check for our CTE community, what do you think our CTE community is underestimating about AI's impact?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think for one, there's a lot of folks who are now using the tool a lot more than were a couple of years ago, but they're using reactive AI. So they're using ChatGPT. They ask a question and they get a response, but they may not be aware of agentic AI that's doing things for you. So this morning when I was working on one thing, I had an AI agent creating a new escape room that is geared towards, I gave it the information. Here are some things that we needed to do to prepare students for the future. Create a new escape room. It's going to have minimal physical tools. Most of it's going to be done online, but they're exploring artificial intelligence while also experiencing what needs to happen in education to prepare kids for a future. That's all happening while I'm making my breakfast. I'm talking to my sister, doing other things. And then I'm able to go back. And if it's not where I want it, I can ask it to make a couple tweaks and changes. But there's so much that we can do with the tools. And I think that a lot of people are underestimating because they're used to doing things the same way all the time. It's a mental shift. It's a mindset shift of, I can be doing this, and this is going to be a more productive way of doing something. So yeah, the tools I think are underestimated, but then also too, thinking about education differently. If you're even if you're allowing AI to be used in your classes, it shouldn't be the same assignment that they were previously doing without AI. As the tools get better, the assignments need to be more complex, more rigorous, need to require more skills for the students. So it's not a matter of them using AI just to do something for them, but also just being able to really rethink how we do things in the classroom.
I'm definitely coming back to the AI in the classroom, but you just said you're building an AI escape room experience and you're using an agent. Can we talk about, like, tell me about the use case for this escape room? Like, I want to hear that. And then if you're okay sharing what AI agent, what tool, what platform are you using to do that?
Yes. So I already do escape rooms for clients when I do a full day training, and I have a few different versions of it. The first version was saving Dr. Innovation from this evil AI. We're saving Dr. Innovation's twin from virtual twin from this evil AI agent, and the participants would have to go. They're using 12 different AI tools just to get to the next clue, to unlock the next clue, to get to the next stage, to save the twin. The latest version of it, I have several versions of it, but the latest version was, I had a client who their theme for their PD day was Back to the Future. So I revamped it to make it geared towards Back to the Future. And it's Doc Brown. It's Doc Brown's virtual twin, and it's the evil GPT-88 because it's related to the whole, 88 being that threshold. And so and it gives people a chance to explore the tools, but it also, there are certain parts of it, and if you haven't, for anyone listening who hasn't done my escape room, I'm just go ahead and fast forward if you haven't done it yet, because I'm going to give away something. But part of it is it's tricking them into prompt injection to where there's a clue hidden, and they kind of get a taste of what it feels like as a student when a kid has all this going on and they decide, I'm just going to use an AI tool, and they copy the assignment into an AI tool. It spits out a result. They don't read it, and then they submit it. It's the same thing. They discover that they've now submitted something that has an unexpected response in it because there was a prompt injection hidden in it, which also can turn into a whole lesson on being very careful about what we're doing with AI in general, because there can be some malicious things hidden into an AI tool that could do much worse than just spit out some text that you don't want. But then it leads into a post conversation on how we redefine cheating in an AI driven world. They're also, one of the clues is using an AI detection tool, and the prompt, it's something I had already tested ahead of time, that it shows that it's AI generated, or it shows that it's human generated. generated when it's actually AI generated. But I used a good prompt, so it can't tell that it's AI generated. So it's showing too that for students, like, these tools are flawed. If you're accusing a kid of cheating and they actually wrote something, but it sounded AI generated, but it's just something that the tools are flawed. So I give them other options instead.
That's so good. Now, on the technical side, because you just introduced Agentic AI into our conversation, this was not a big topic during our first conversation in 2023. However, in 2026, this is, I feel like, the year of Agentic AI. What's the tool you're using, or can you share like an advice for someone who wants to start exploring using agents to help do some of that work so they can get things done while they talk to their sister?
Yeah. So right now I'm using ChatGPT, the agent mode in ChatGPT, and it's in the drop down menu. You have to be using the Plus or Pro version to access agentic mode. But I do want to point out with that, just to go off subject for a moment, if you're using the free version of a tool, you're using something that's a year behind, which in AI world is way behind. You're still getting a lot of hallucinations. You're getting some bizarre responses from time to time. It still can do some good things, but it shows kind of an equity issue as well when someone who doesn't have access to the same version of AI or to multiple AI tools. So just throwing that out there, that's something we need to take into consideration within education. But so agent mode in ChatGPT, it's not like going into Microsoft Copilot and using an agent, because that's still going to be reactive AI where it just gives a very specialized response. With this, it's actually doing things for you. I'll tell it where my upcoming trip is, and have it find the best flight for my personal preferences, find the rental car if I need a rental car, recommend hotels, and it knows I have it set up with memory so that it can remember my preferences, which makes prompting easier for future trips. And it will lay out my entire travel plan. If I wanted to, I could go in so the agent opens up a virtual computer. I want to make sure I'm explaining some of these pieces. For those of you who've never used Agentic AI, you'll see the agent open this virtual computer, and you can watch it actually working very quickly. And then if it gets to a point where it needs to log in, you decide at that point, is this something that as a human, I want to take over, add my password, it has protection, so it takes over and then you give the control back? Or is this something I want to take the process from here because I don't want it logging in and booking my flights or doing something on that end? So that depends on your familiarity with the tool and your level of trust for it. There's some like we'll talk about OpenClaw later, but that you may want to be a little bit more careful about. But it is something that everyone should experiment with, even with something basic that's just an experimental prompt. You can even ask it, hey, what's a good prompt for me to use when I'm using Agentic AI and just getting started? You can have AI even come up with something for you. But it really is something that could increase your productivity. If you change your mindset and remember, oh, wait, I don't actually have to do this. I can have an agent work on this.
Yeah, I think that is the new opportunity to explore more of that. Like you said, and thank you for taking the time to share like some of the foundational knowledge, because we do have listeners who are out on the edge using this, and then some folks are like still like, hold on, what are you talking about? With that being said, let's stay there and go into OpenClaw for a minute, since we're already kind of talking about agents. OpenAI recently acquired or brought in the OpenClaw team. OpenClaw describes itself as the AI that actually does things, clears your inbox, sends emails, manages your calendar, checks you in for your flights, all from WhatsApp, Telegram, or any chat app you already use. The folks out on the edge are like going crazy right now about OpenClaw and its ability to have multiple agents working on things. What are your thoughts? Any impact on CTE and in education in general?
Yeah. So Sylvester, that's a good question. It's only a few weeks in, and it's interesting because it's already changed its name 3 times. Like what product changes that quickly? But if for anyone, if you're not familiar with it, definitely look it up. I have not downloaded it onto my computer yet. I was considering buying a used simple computer that I can set it up on to start learning it and seeing what it's capable of. But the people who are using it, I've heard people who've had it create websites for them, like an entire lovely website within an hour. Just like it's able to live on your computer and access all of your tools. So it used to be we thought of AI as a tool. Now it's a tool that uses tools. It's able to, use your Excel document, use your Word document, combine all these tools and do some incredible things. But there are some things, like I mentioned before, with the prompt injection, that I include that as part of the escape room. So it can have, if you're downloading an application within it, so it can be more secure because it's living on your computer. But then if you download something and you don't know that it has a prompt injection or something malicious in it, then it can be dangerous. So that's why I'm not a coder. I have not coded, and like I used to know very basic coding, and it's just been many years since I've done any coding. So I want to make sure that I understand it well enough before I actually would put it on my computer and trust it to interact with different tools. Even when I started using AI Agent, my first thing that I did with it, I gave it access to an old Outlook account because I wanted it to be able to build something in the forms, but it was an account that I don't care about. If something were to go wrong, I could just delete it. It wouldn't ruin my day or my week or my year because I lost so much information. So that's one way to look at experimenting with these tools too, is just give it an account that as you're getting more comfortable with it and finding out what it can do. But yeah, what are your thoughts? What are you hearing or seeing with OpenClaw?
For me, it's most of the business community right now. I personally have been thoughtful about how it applies to education, CTE, like what we're preparing students for, that sort of thing. But just hearing people setting up separate agents for almost as if you're setting up your corporation, right? So if it was your speaking business, you're setting up an agent that handles marketing. You're setting up a separate agent that handles like your assistant that's doing travel, logistics, research. The way people have told me they're using it to sort, if you're open to giving it access to the email, sort through my emails, look at the contacts for lead management, rank them in terms of who I've reached out to, who I need to reach out to, and create the conversation, the next email or whatever I need to do to connect with these folks. But setting it up that's been one of the more interesting things that I've seen, of like, some people are doing separate agents, one for finance, one for marketing, HR, like all these different things, which is done in a traditional, how we think of business structure today. But then I've also heard people saying, like, you don't need 7 different agents. You could just have one that has all of that information, all of those skills, that could be one position that could do multiples of those things. But I've been finding it interesting seeing the agents working together. Those who are like really advanced, like based on the prompts or the rules of like, you do the agent 1 does the research, and then agent 2 fact checks said research and then sends it back to refine and makes the request to update the research. So I like to pull together a dossier or something. One of my friends that uses it for a podcast, they have a really big podcast. They use it for research for guests. Go and find the information and pull it into a dossier of said individual, which may bring back some things that you were not aware of because it took the time to do like a little more intense research. So it's definitely a conversation now around, for me, like getting hours back. Like, how many hours can you get back that maybe you could be using for other productive activities? And I'm curious to see how that moves into education as we use it to help support administrators, school systems, counselors, educators, like just seeing how that moves in. But I like how you brought up the point that's necessary is the controls around it, of being thoughtful about that. And we really have to be thoughtful about that in education as we're dealing with student data and other sensitive information. So, yeah.
Well, and Sylvester, when you mentioned that, the tools for creating efficiencies in schools, my hope is that it really helps with teacher retention, because when you talk to teachers who've left the classroom, it's never about the students, or rarely about the students. Usually it's about they didn't realize all of the administrative tasks that come around it. I saw a survey that said that 22% of a teacher's time is spent on doing non-teaching tasks. And I honestly think it might even be higher than that. But if you have artificial intelligence tools that are really good, that can help with managing those tasks, and teachers actually get to do what they went into teaching for in the first place, which is to work with their students, be with their students, I think it's going to make education better as a whole, but also help with those retention issues that we're seeing. Which, by the way, too, I'll point out that when people talk about AI replacing teachers, I don't know of any school that has people lining up for those teacher roles. If it's the opposite, around April is when the school leaders start panicking because they start getting notifications of who's not coming back, who's retiring, and they're scrambling to try to find people to fill those positions. So I really think that this is going to be something, whereas AI, of course, has its downsides like anything else, but one of the upsides is definitely going to be helping to retain our educators.
Yeah, I hope you're correct on that. I really do. But that is something on the other side of the AI conversation. I don't know if you saw this recent Harvard Business Review article that talks about AI. It says AI doesn't reduce work, it intensifies it. This came out February 9th this year, but it's talking about, it says right now many companies are worried about how to get more employees to use AI after all the promise of AI reducing the burden of some work, drafting routines and summarizing information. However, some of the higher value tasks are actually people are spending more time on the work than actually AI being a reduction of work. So I don't know if you've experienced that, of like more reviews, more like edits. And so it's like, well, is it? We're just, maybe then we'll add more work. We're expecting more productivity.
Yeah, I can see that. Like I use AI constantly, and I'm not swimming in free time. I think that for one thing, we fill in the gaps. Like every time I hear someone say, "Oh, it's good," like we're going to have a 3 or 4 day work week, I'm like, really? Because my schedule has not gotten any lighter, and I'm using AI tools like crazy. I think some of my outputs are better. I think my slide decks are, I will never give, like Gamma AI can make a beautiful slide deck, but I love creating my slide decks, and I have my custom template. So, and that's how I process what my presentation is as I'm creating my slide deck. So I'll use it to create images or background, like movement slides and whatnot. But I will not hand over anytime soon the task of creating a full slide deck to AI. But that being said, I do think that we fill in the gaps and find other things to do. Sometimes too, like using multiple tools, you can get sidetracked, or you're making sure the prompts are correct, so you're having to check everything. So I'm not surprised by that.
Yeah, and I think what you said, that it's funny how the conversation has changed. So like maybe 2023, like when, we just really hit that crazy AI ChatGPT wave. If you were on it early, then yeah, maybe everyone doesn't know you're using it for work, and what would have taken 8 hours, you're able to do in 1. And then like, yeah, maybe you could take the rest of the day off. But in today's world where it's like the new standard is expected that you're using it. So if you turned 8 hours into 1 hour, and your counterpart is also doing that, but they're working the full 8 hours as well, they're going to run laps around you at this point. So it's no more of like, just do something and then take the rest of the day off. It's like, it looks probably more like what you said. A Rachael Mann today is more productive, efficient, versus Rachael 2020. You know what I mean? Like you're getting more done, more ideas are being delivered and brought to life.
And I think that, and with that, I'll mention too, I've heard some people say that they're now adding in mistakes to make it look like something's not AI generated, and not just students, but adults as well. And like, isn't it ironic that we used to try to make everything perfect? Now we're adding imperfections to show that it's human versus AI. Or like, I don't know if you've heard the Notebook LM, the podcast where you can have a podcast with two AI voices talking to each other. And the AI voices actually interrupt each other. They include filler words, little mistakes to sound more human. And we teach kids how public speaking to not do any of these things that AI is adding.
No, that's funny. Yeah, speaking of that, like I played around with, I made an AI version of myself with like doing the podcast. So similar background, me, I gave it photos. I used 11 labs to get my voice right. And then was it Gen? I think Gen AI. Hey Gen, is it Hey Gen? That's what. Yeah, I think that's what I used for to make the video avatar of myself. And it was interesting to watch. And it was like, I'm like, yeah, it was a little off, it was a little off, but just to see like what I could do in an hour was pretty crazy. And just knowing that like, oh, this is only going to get better. But it did capture some of my mannerisms, some of my voice. I thought is really interesting to see what's possible here. We're talking AI. I want to move the conversation to your latest book, Pack Your Bags for an AI-Driven Future. Why that title? Why this book now?
Great question. So first I want to mention when I took this idea to my publisher, he had a lot of concerns because AI changes so fast. Even then, now it's even faster. How do you create an evergreen book around artificial intelligence? So that was one of his initial concerns. But the name of the book, Pack Your Bags for an AI-Driven Future, comes from, well, first of all, there was a conference that I attended during the pandemic. I was attending virtually, but also a keynote speaker, and I heard one of the organizers talking about looking at this time during the pandemic as what we need to pack. What do we need to pack for this virtual world? What's different? What can we not do anymore? And then a couple of years later in 2022, that conversation came back to me. I was packing my bags to move from Phoenix, Arizona, across the United States to Hershey, PA, and thinking about what goes in that moving truck, what gets left behind, what do I give away, what do I throw away, because who knows why I've kept it all these years. And, some things that you've got to add. Now I have a lawn and grass, whereas in Arizona, you just rake your sand. You got some, what is it called? The turf, some turf in the backyard around your fire pit. There's no mowing your lawn. So thinking about those things that I needed to add, and then taking that analogy and applying it to preparing to an AI-driven future. What are the things that are so important that are in our programs, whether it's CTE programs or even in your academic areas, that that it has to make it into that moving truck, that it's foundational, it's domain knowledge. Kids have to know this. It's going to prepare them for their world. Then what are some things that we've been doing because it's what we did and we feel like it's the right thing, but it's really not relevant anymore? Or it could be that there's just only so much time and so much room on your plate. You've got to take something off your plate in order to add the AI literacy, learning these skills yourself, whatnot. And then what are the things that have to be added in order to prepare kids for their future? What are the things that it may be adding a new software, a new, magic school AI across the district, whatever it might be. You're adding some things as well. And then using that analogy just to think through and also thinking through the fact that everyone's packing list is going to look different. I can't tell you what's going to be on your packing list because you're teaching a different content area or have a different perspective. So everyone has to be able to create their own packing list, and knowing too that sometimes we're going to get it wrong. So when I was in Phoenix, they have auctions for Amazon, and I found this push mower that's an electric push mower and get here, take it out of the box. Well, first of all, it has a cord. I have 3.3 acres and it's got a cord that you plug into the wall doesn't go very far. And there's no way I could use a push mower on this entire property. So we're going to end up at points buying the wrong tool or, missing something that's just happened that our students know more about. So I think we have to be okay with knowing that change work is messy and that this is going to be messy and it's going to stay messy because this isn't something that's slowing down, and we've got to be co-collaborators with our students and with each other in this AI-driven realm.
Yeah, that's so powerful. Now, as you are traveling the country, speaking, doing keynote speeches for business and industry, as well as education organizations, what are you seeing or hearing people say they need to pack in their bag?
So when I'm doing a half day or full day workshop, that's one of the questions for their ticket out the door. And I would say that for most, they're realizing that there's a lot that they don't know, that, just like they may think that, oh, I'm proficient. I use it a few times a month. I know about this tool. And this is something that is quickly changing everything. This morning I was on a call with a group of business and industry professionals doing a virtual keynote, and then we had a Q&A afterwards. And realizing that there's this quote, the future is already here, but it's not evenly distributed. So when someone finds out that there's this tool that they didn't even know about for their business or didn't know how big of an impact that AI is having or could have in their industry, I think that that's something that is very eye-opening, and it can also create some both excitement and fear in individuals as they think about how, we get very comfortable with how we do things. And when you think about a world that is nebulous and that is dynamic and, just the constant change and needing that agility, I think that can be a bit overwhelming for all of us. And I think that that's something too that we have to wrap our heads around. What is that going to look like? How do we really prepare for that, both in education and in our personal lives and in the workforce? I love it.
All right. Now I'm going to put you on the spot here. Okay. Let's put together the list of Rachael Mann's top tools for education that education should be exploring or maybe curious about. What would you say to those tools?
Yes. Well, first of all, make sure that everything that you're using, especially if you're using it with students, is FERPA, COPA compliant, IDA. It depends on where you're at. There's some states have even more specific guidelines. So make sure you're using the right tools and you're protecting student data. But some of my favorites to use with educators would be Gemini, the EDU version, because it already has the protections in place, which is really helpful. It's already geared towards education. It's not training on your data. Same thing for Copilot. And then, and Canva for education has some incredible, most people are still using it to create flyers or social media posts. If you look at it, they have an area that says like for AI tools, you can have it create an app like within seconds, an app that your students can use in your next class period that is gamifying education and creating this tool that's going to make your learning environment more exciting, more dynamic, more fun. So if you're reviewing for say NOCTI exams, look at how you can also use within Gemini. They have an option for Canva. When you click on Canva, that will also create web-based apps for you that are so easy. Like if you're a veterinarian sciences, my very first app that I created was for diagnosing an animal where someone can put in the symptom, the type of the breed of the pet, and then it will give you some potential what could possibly be wrong with your pet. So impressive. This isn't coding. This is something anyone can do. It's just conversational. Hey, make me an app that diagnoses a pet. And then from there, you can better prompts are going to produce better results. Sometimes I'll do a very simple prompt to see what it produces and then have it refine it because you don't have to accept that what it produces. You keep changing it. So Canva for education, Magic School AI, especially for people who they don't even know what to ask. When you go into Magic School, it has so many different exemplars. And then you have Raina, the chatbot, that will be your instructional coach that will also guide you through. And then as you start learning more and more about the tools, you can create custom tools so that instead of every time you use it, you're uploading your standards or task lists, Now you have this custom tool that already has it or has specific context, like how long your class is, what grade. So you don't have to redo that all the time. So those would be my top for education. I have a whole list of ones that I use for my personal workflow as well, but I would say that those would be definitely ones, especially for someone starting out.
Yeah, those are some good ones. We talked a little about this in the pre-show of like what's keeping some people away from like really diving in on using some of these tools, fear or like, the way your workplace talks about it, or even some of the one that's has stood out to me. I was watching a podcast and it was saying like how some coders are like, oh no, I'm not touching AI because, I've gone to school for this. Like nothing can code better than me. And it's like something to be cautious about is the ego stopping you from exploring some of these AI tools because it's so deeply connected to challenging your identity or something that, you've gone to school for. When I personally believe like, well, that coder would actually get more out of the AI tools because they have that background knowledge or, however you transfer that idea to other industries. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so last week I was working in Ohio with a group and I stayed after for one-on-one appointments with educators and was talking to a language arts teacher. And she said that she feels like she's totally embraced AI. And she was talking about how it's made her a better writer. And I thought about that even for myself and for my writing journey. My first book came out in 2018 and it was sending stuff to my mom, who's a retired language arts teacher. My mom edit this and she's like, haven't you heard of Grammarly? And then she sends me this book so that because she was really tearing my writing apart. Fortunately, your publishing company has a lot of editors, so that helps too. But now we have some really great tools and I've become a better writer because when I see things that, when you have like even like a spelling check or like a Grammarly attached to your programs, you're seeing these auto corrections, but it helps you to start realizing some things and become a better writer along the way. But also I think that some people, just like seeing it as cheating for students, they see it as cheating for themselves. So I was working with a group of support staff and several of them, it was their first time ever touching a generative AI tool, first time using ChatGPT or anything. And so we had a 3-hour workshop. And at the end, one of them's like, this is amazing, but I feel like I'm cheating. And I think there is that sense of, gosh, this is something that it did it so well, but is that cheating that I just used it in my spreadsheet and it did all of the stuff I would have done myself for me. And I'll say that it's when you're in a workplace, it's not. When you're becoming more efficient for your customers and for your boss, it's not. Now, if you're taking something and putting your name on it and not at all acknowledging an AI tool that you may have used, even with that, one of the things I mentioned in Pack Your Bags for an AI-driven future is that I've done some ghostwriting. And when I ghostwrite, it's an exchange. They're putting their name on it. I can never say that I wrote for them. And like that is our exchange. So you can kind of look at it almost even as if you have a ghostwriter. And I think that a big part of it too is making sure that it does have it's not replacing your authentic self. Like you've worked through the prompt engineering, worked through and made your revisions, edits, and massaged the product. So I think that we have to remember that this is the tool using the tools that we're using moving forward. And would you feel as if someone who's building your home because they use robotics as part of, as one of their tools, they used a robotic welder. Is that cheating if it gave you a better, like a really good product and it took there's always the concern of it replacing humans too. And I think people worry about that when they're using AI tools. Am I taking away someone else's job? I would say that yes, there's going to be jobs that are replaced. And now I'm going into a whole different subject, but you're also creating new opportunities and there's going to be new jobs as well.
Yeah, no, that's a very powerful and thoughtful response. I think you're spot on with everything you just said. I want to shift gears real quick and just offer you one gratitude in your role as the executive director of the NCLA. One, for bringing the the conference this past year to my home city of St. Louis, Missouri. I hope everyone had a great time and had some wonderful St. Louis barbecue or, explored the city. I had a packed room for my session of, we were talking about the future of CTE, and I used some of the guests on the podcast and clips and lots of wonderful discussion out of that room. I wanted to just open it up to you. I'm curious, like what's next? What's on the agenda? Like the conferences you put on are really phenomenal. So like what do you have coming up for this year?
Thanks for asking that. And I do want to point out, since we knew each other, we'd communicated virtually on social media and email, and met for the first time in Cape Cod at the Best Practices and Innovations Conference, which is so exciting. So I'm glad you asked that question about NCLA. So we have several new things we're offering. We have Women's History Month. We decided to do our first ever Women in CTE Leadership Summit happening March 24th and 25th in Dallas, Texas. In April, we have a school study visit to Salem, Oregon, and it is going to be phenomenal. One of our board members, Rhonda Rhodes, is putting it on, and you get to learn from all of her best practices, her student ambassadors that are just amazing how they've trained them so well to be professionals and to be the leaders within the school. So that'll be a really great few days for teams to come and learn from another school and see their B-school and see their programs. Then we also have two virtual events. One is a 3-hour workshop for executive assistants. So the National Council of Local Administrators, we serve CTE leaders across the country. What better way to support our leaders than to make the people that they're working with more efficient in being able to use AI tools? So that'll be coming up in a few months. We are still determining our date that works best for a lot of people, but it'll be offered on demand as well. And then also a virtual AI training for CTE leaders, because so often our leaders are providing PD for their staff, but not necessarily taking care of their own professional development because they're so busy serving others. So this will also give them the opportunity to model instructional leadership by knowing the AI tools that they're asking their teachers and students to learn. Best Practices and Innovations in CTE will be back in Cape Cod again this year, September 23rd through the 25th. We're so excited. We're adding a lot of new features and tackling some hard conversations that sometimes get glossed over in CTE, and really making sure that part of it will be an unconference portion where you're able to have those hard conversations and be real about the problems that you're facing within your school district. And then our final event of the year is the first ever AI and CTE Summit in Phoenix, Arizona, November 16th and 17th.
Wow. Okay. So you're taking it there. You're taking it there from Cape Cod to Phoenix for the AI and CTE. That's a winner. Yeah. That's a big one. Hats off to you. Thank you for innovating and ushering in these conversations in the space. It's so important. So very important.
We have an amazing board, and we've just added a new staff member, Dory Pitzner. So it's definitely an excellent team with a vision for the future.
That's so important right now. Hats off to you all. I have one more question, but before I ask that, I do want to create the space. If anyone is interested in learning more about the conferences, where should they go? And if they're interested in bringing in you for one of your full-day workshops or keynote, where should they go?
Sure. So thank you for asking that. For NCLA, the website is nclagecte.org, and go to the events tab, and also consider best still in a professional organization. It's $40 a year. So join us as a member as well and be a part of an amazing network of leaders. And then for my services, edfuture.org is my website, or you can reach me at Rachael@edfuture.org, and that's Art AEL. And thank you for the opportunity, and for folks listening in. I hope we can stay connected.
Oh, no, absolutely. Great conferences. And as you can see from 2 episodes Look, we haven't invited that many people back. Okay. So for Rachel,
I'm honored. Thank you.
I'm like, I have to talk to you. Like, I'm following everything on LinkedIn. I'm like, there's too much going on in AI, and with you, like I need to get inside of that brain and see what's new. What should we be thinking about? The direction, the future we're headed in. With that being said, my last question, what is your vision for the future of CTE?
Oh my, that's a big question. For one, I want to just recognize that CTE is building the future. They're building the infrastructure even for AI. And I believe like this is our time in CTE. I think that it's really, people are recognizing the trades, recognizing the skill that goes into what happens within CTE. CTE is for everyone. And I would say one of my biggest goals and hopes for CTE is for folks to realize that it is for everyone. It's not for those kids, or, breaking those old stereotypes and helping people to see just how incredible our educators are and the work that our students produce, and just the level of professionalism and skill that goes into what happens within the career technical education.
Love it. Thank you for your response. You're right. CTE is for everyone. And I feel like the work we're all doing is helping to reframe it, shift the narrative, as honorable careers, respectable trades, and things people should be proud of and should be well respected within our community and society. Thanks again for joining us and for sharing your knowledge. So much wisdom was shared and dropped today. For all of my listeners, thank you for watching and taking in this content. Don't be selfish. Share it with a friend who needs to hear all of this great news and insights that Rachel shared today. And until the next episode, remember, you don't have to be great to get started, but you have to get started to be great. Peace.